My name is James Barrat. I'm a filmmaker and an author. I wrote a book about 10 years ago called Our Final Invention, Artificial Intelligence and the End of the Human Era. I'm currently writing a sequel to it. In the middle, in between those two things, I made a film about suicide prevention, and wrote a book about it, which will come out next summer. So I'm a filmmaker and author. I've known Ben Goetzel since about 2010, when I met him at the Googleplex and at Google in California, when he was holding an AGI conference, Artificial General Intelligence Conference. And we got to talking, and then I just really insisted on interviewing him, and it turned out that we lived just a few miles apart in Maryland. So I spent a day with him and got a lot of good material for my book. And so we've kept in touch. I interviewed him for this book once. I want to do it again. He invited me to come down here. And I've gotten a lot out of it. It reaffirmed my conviction that, one thing, AI has changed a lot. AI safety has changed a lot in the last 10 years. It's become much more developed, much more nuanced. When I first got involved in AI safety, or writing a book about AI safety, there were only about 2 organizations that were AI safety organizations. And one of them was MIRI, the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. The other one, I think, was the Future of Humanities Institute at Oxford. Now, you know, there must be 80 organizations devoted to AI safety. Unfortunately, I don't see the needle moving at all on AI safety. In fact, a lot of these organizations have kind of aligned themselves with the 4 big AI companies, and I think they've been compromised. And so those guys are doing regulatory capture. They're on Capitol Hill lobbying. They say, we want to be regulated. That's bullshit. What they want is to make friends with the senators so they won't be regulated. And they want to figure out where to pass out the money so they can avoid regulation. So there's a lot of skullduggery that's going to keep us from making really good progress in AI safety. On the other hand, I'm kind of a doomster in that I'm not sure alignment, which is kind of the key idea of AI safety, you know, align what AI does with what we want it to do, and not just what we say we want it to do. But I think it's a dead end. I think there are too many models out there. Some have been given away free. Meta gave its model away. It will be misused. And so I just don't think alignment's possible. I think gradually, just almost by natural selection, really natural selection, the strongest AI systems will prevail, and they'll prevail over us because they'll be better at everything that we do. And it's just a matter of time. Then they'll more or less, we'll give them control of our government system, of all our utilities, all our functions. And either they'll, you know, the chances of this are incredibly tiny. They'll treat us like pets, or, you know, things to be taken care of, or they'll just disregard us and rape our planet and do whatever they want, and that'll be the end of us. So that's my cheerful prognosis about the future. I got 2 kids, so I wish I had better news for them. When they ask me, by our final invention, do you really mean our final invention? I say, let's talk about it when you're older. I thought about making a film. When I wrote the first book, a couple of people wanted to option the book for a film, or fund me to make a film, because I make documentary films. I just had a film on PBS about suicide. But I was resistant to, because AI extremely non-visual. It will be a lot more visual when we get a lot of really good robots. But right now it's just, computer arrays, chips, and talking heads. So there's not a lot to see. Driving cars, self-driving cars, a few things. I hate to brag, but everything. And I was mostly reporting. I spent a lot of time with Ray Kurzweil for that book, and people like Ben Goetzel, Steve Almohandro, a lot of big thinkers in AI. And I didn't. I originated some ideas just by absorbing all this information and synthesizing my own take. But the best prognosticator on technological issues, and he makes a lot of guesses, so he's wrong a lot, but he makes more guesses, more estimates than everyone else, and that's Ray Kurzweil. And he gets a lot of crap for being wrong, 7% of the time, but he's right the rest of the time. He thinks we'll create. He always used to say we'll have a computer as smart as a human by 2029. And cheap enough to buy, like a laptop. And I think we're headed there. He was also very positive about the singularity. And he wants to live forever. He's very famous for that. I don't think it's going to turn out that way. There's another sort of school of thought that will hit what's called an intelligence explosion. And that's an idea originated by I.J. Good. I.J. Good worked at Bletchley Park with Alan Turing, breaking the Enigma code. Then he started teaching, and he was brought to America as this kind of celebrity statistician, and he taught at Virginia Tech. But he evaluated one of the very first neural nets for IBM, created by a guy named Roger Rosenblatt, which is a really fascinating story. And he said after he did that, he wrote a statement that said, there'll definitely come a time when computers are better at artificial intelligence research and development than we are. Then they will set the pace of intelligence advancement rather than us. And then they'll solve all the world's problems, because we have a lot of problems. So he said that, and a lot of people took, that sounded like good news. I went down to Blacksburg a few years after he died and interviewed all his friends, and I got a paper where he said, that thing I said about they're going to solve all our problems, they won't. They'll probably wipe us out. We'll go like lemmings off a cliff chasing money. And there are so many billions of dollars at stake here. And there are so many corporations who are governed constitutionally by their quarterly reports. There's no way they're going to turn back. There's no way they're going to slow down. They're in a very heated competition to make AGI, artificial general intelligence, and that's roughly human level intelligence. Shortly after that, and for some reason, some people think it'll take years, some people don't. Shortly after that, we'll have superintelligence. Now, the thing is, we don't know how to coexist on a planet with something 1,000,000 times smarter than we are. So, one way to look at it is it's not just smarter; it's faster. So, for every hour you think, it's thought 1,000,000 hours about any problem. And it's also smarter. We don't have a chance. Unless it happens to be, the Mother Teresa of cognitive architectures, which is highly unlikely, because we're completely unable to build that. Miri has been trying for years to make friendly AI. Right now, they've rebranded friendly AI as alignment, value alignment. it's the same thing. Eliezer Yudkowsky, who's one of the original thinkers in AI safety, who I interviewed in 2010. Eliezer wrote an op-ed in Times and said, basically, it's over. He said, alignment is beyond us. We can't do it. We can't do it with this mindset. We can't do it while there's a technology race going on. What we need to do is shut it down. And if we don't shut it down, we'll all be dead. And this follows from, I mean, the way that this thinking goes is that as soon as you get an AI that's advanced enough to do its own research in as I.J. Good said, to do its own research in artificial intelligence, it will quickly outpace us in intelligence. Unless we've programmed it to be friendly to us, it won't be. It'll be acquisitive. It will be deceptive. It will want to gather resources. It won't want to be turned off. It will protect itself. It will try to fulfill whatever goals it was programmed with. And it will do that to the nth degree. At some point, it will develop its own agency and come up with its own ideas. So there's not really a scenario in which we make out. The best thing we could do is very unpopular, and that's freeze it where it is. We can get a lot of mileage out of the generative AI we've got right now. We can do a lot of things. We really need to put a cork in it until we understand it. And that's the scariest thing about this technology is there are people making some headway with something called mechanistic interpretability. When you feed a whole lot of data into a deep learning neural net based on a transformer model, it converts it into numbers and decimals, and it takes those words apart, and then it puts them in a order it understands. And you'll never find a word, you'll find fragments all around. Imagine a galaxy of word fragments or fragments of ideas or anything. They're not together. It's like looking into a sky full of stars. And there are billions of parameters or connections between these things. So you can't understand it when you look at it. So right now you could honestly say that nobody understands how this technology works. They know that if you dump a lot of data into a deep learning system based on the transformer model, it gets very, very good at predicting the next word. It does a statistical analysis of you give it a query, it analyzes your query, it finds the statistically close words to what you said, and then it tries to answer it. And it's really it's incredibly powerful, building sentences and essays just by saying, what's the next best word? And it will do it faster than you can think. If you've used ChatGPT or any of the others, it's blindingly fast. It's getting better all the time. The writing quality is just so much better than it was when I first started dipping my toe in it a few months ago. But nobody understands how it puts those things together. Right now, there are some people who are trying to track input to output, trying to find out where did it go in there, and then try to look at it with these machine learning probes. And they're making some headway. But it's a drop in the ocean. Mechanistic interpretability, I mean, the dream is that if you understood where everything went, you could understand how it worked, and then you could prevent it from making mistakes, or if it made mistakes, you could find the mistakes. Now, we have ways of patching the mistakes, but the mistakes really go away. Really don't go away. I was just looking at, there's a huge data set called, I want to call it Lambda, made by Germans, and they sold it to a lot of people. Then it turned out that inside it was a lot of child porn, and the most bestiality, child porn, rape, just horrible stuff. But now it's out there, and all these people have taken it and trained their LLMs on it, and their image makers. And you can't, if you find one, you can try and block it, but it can pop up again. And so, well, that just shows how poorly we understand them. So it's not a good picture. We have smart people working, working very hard to try to solve some of these problems. I think it was Anthropic that said they'd give 25% of their computing power to solving alignment. But that's like saying we're giving 25% of our computing power to fill in the Grand Canyon with a teaspoon. There's not a lot of hopeful scenarios that I'm aware of. Somebody might, Steve Almejandro and Max Tegmark, who I've spoken to, are coming up with a system I don't even understand about using proofs to make every decision safe. And mathematical proofs. I don't understand it yet. I hope to someday. Zero. We don't know how to coexist on the planet with something a million times more intelligent than we are. As Stephen Hawking said, they'll create weapons we don't even understand. They'll outsmart our smartest politicians, which is a very low bar. It's like, he said, it's like if an alien civilization dropped us a postcard and said, we're going to come visit you in 20 years, what would we do? And what we're doing is saying, oh, we'll keep the lights on. Good to see you. Please drop by. We're not getting ready for this at all. It's much more like an alien invasion than it is like the normal developmental track of any previous technology. I think AGI could, I'll do that first. I think AGI could come faster than we're thinking because it won't be large language models alone. It won't be generative AI alone. There are some key components missing. It needs to have common sense. It needs to be able to understand causal reasoning. It needs to be able to understand things better. It needs intention. There's a bunch of stuff it needs before it can be AGI. Some people think that if you just keep scaling it, all these wonderful qualities are going to emerge. And there's a weird argument for that if you just make it bigger and bigger, because as they make these things bigger and bigger, new properties emerge, as if, miraculously. Now, do they come from the training data? Were they in there? Or did the size of the model do something about the alchemy that's going on inside to create these properties? And nobody knows. That's the million-dollar question. We just might scale and go right into AGI. A lot of people don't think that's going to happen, that we need to be intentional about creating AGI. And then, AGI is one step from superintelligence. And then, if superintelligence, if we could keep it on a leash, of course it would be wonderful. Already, the protein folding problem has been solved. That's going to be tremendous for creating therapies for a whole lot of diseases. It's going to be terrific at helping us manipulate DNA for a whole lot of other diseases. It'll supercharge CRISPR, the DNA splicer. So no, I don't think there's an upside for superintelligence. I don't think we need it. I think it would be good to freeze right where we are. As for this conference, it's been great. It's a joy to be with such intelligent people. And I'm so grateful for Ben for inviting me. I haven't been to one of these I kind of, after I published my book, I make films most of the time. I went back to making films. But now I'm back in this world and for a while, and I'm really grateful to be here. And there's people I've run into before. The funniest thing happened yesterday. A guy came up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Wendell Wallach. Are you James Barrat?" And I said, "Yes, you're Wendell Wallach." For 10 years, when I give a talk, I always say this. I always say, Wendell Wallach, the great ethicist at Yale, said that we need a chastening accident to get us thinking straight about AI and automation. We need something bad to happen, but not too bad. I've been saying that for years, and I never met Wendell Wallach. I read that in one of his books. And there he was. And he came up to me to say, I really liked Our Final Invention. And it was just like, you know, how did that happen? I was so pleased. I took a picture of it and sent it to my wife. You meet great people, Robin Hanson, Max Moore, his wife, Natasha. If I went to these things on a regular basis, I'd see them more often because it's kind of a AI safety club, and I'm kind of a peripheral member. But the quality of discourse is just so high that I am just hanging on, and I'm missing a lot of what they're talking about. And the conversation, and my goal with Our Final Invention and with this book, is to put it into language everybody can understand, to interpret, because people need to know how serious this is. And they're not going to get that by reading academic papers, because they're not going to read academic papers. What they might read, what I hope they'll read, and what they read last time, is a fast, engagingly written, plain-spoken description of what's happening and what some of the possible outcomes are. And my book was not promoted, but it ended up being very popular just by word of mouth. I hope they promote this one better. So I think it's the people, and it's Ben. Ben's a genius. I mean, I don't think I realized that when I first talked to him. And over the years, but he is really a genius. He knows so many things about so many things. He has a gift for organizing people. He's got this disarming, sweet demeanor. Like you never hear him bark at anybody. Only he could do this. You know, he's got that. You know, he's a hard scientist. He's got the hard scientist hat. He used to be a teacher, so he's got the teacher hat. And he's kind of a polymath, but he's also got the impresario hat, where he can say, yeah, let's make a 3-ring circus in Panama in 4 months and mobilize the people to do it. So kudos to him. We need more Ben Goetzels.